I've heard people collapse before. Men fainting in heat, drivers dropping from exhaustion, strangers buckling under the weight of their own lives. But nothing prepared me for the sound of a woman's body hitting the gravel beside my truck at 2 a.m, followed by a whisper so broken it carved through the night like a blade. He is coming back. Tell me, what would you do if someone said that to you while the darkness held its breath around you? The engine of my rig rumbled behind me, warm diesel fanning into the freezing air. The world outside was dead quiet. No cars passing, no radios playing, no signs of life except the trembling shape at my feet. She tried to push herself up, but her arms gave out, her body shaking uncontrollably. Her breath came in rapid bursts, turning white in the cold. She looked over her shoulder every few seconds, as if expecting a shadow to detach from the darkness and come for her. I knelt down, gravel digging into my knees, and when our eyes met, I saw terror so raw, it stripped away everything else. Her lip was split. Dirt streaked her face. One side of her cheek was swollen. She clutched her ribs like every breath was a punishment. Whatever she'd escaped from wasn't far. Pain doesn't stay fresh for long unless danger is close. Too close. Her fingers curled into the fabric of my jacket, weak but desperate, like she was hanging onto the last stable thing left in her world. "Please," she whispered, barely able to get the word out. "Don't leave me. He's coming back." Her voice cracked on that last word, back, like the memory of him burned through her each time she said it. I felt the cold settle deeper into my bones, not from the weather, but from what her fear confirmed. And in that moment, with the wind scraping across the empty lot and the night stretching far too silently around us, I realized something with a force that tightened my chest. I was her only chance. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to understand something. Truckers aren't heroes. We're not police, we're not soldiers. We're not trained to fight the monsters that walk in human skin. But sometimes, on nights like this, we're the only ones there. The only ones who hear the cry. The only ones who stop. If you believe stories like this matter, if you think people need to hear what really happens on the dark edges of the road, then hit the like button. It helps these voices reach someone who might need them more than you know. Her breathing was ragged, shallow, like every inhale was a battle she wasn't sure she could win. I lifted her gently, but she cried out, pain shooting through her ribs. She wasn't faking. She wasn't confused. She was running from someone who had already done enough damage to break her body and almost break her will. I helped her sit against the tire of my rig, shielding her from the wind. She kept staring toward the empty highway, searching for headlights that weren't there, but expecting them. "What happened to you?" I asked quietly. She shook her head, tears forming. "He found me," she whispered. "He always finds me." Her voice wasn't just scared, it was haunted. "I thought I had time. I thought I got away. But he'll come. He always comes." The way she said it made the hair on the back of my neck rise. That wasn't fear of a stranger. That was fear of someone who had made her run more than once. I scanned the lot, every shadow suddenly feeling heavier. The neon sign above the closed diner buzzed faintly, casting a sickly glow across the pavement. My headlights stretched over the pumps, over the empty parking slots, over the cracks in the concrete, but nothing moved. Still, the silence felt wrong, like the night itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to step forward. She grabbed my wrist, nails digging in with surprising strength. "Don't let him take me," she said, voice trembling. "Please, please." And I knew, without hesitation, without doubt, that walking away wasn't an option. Not tonight, not for her. I shrugged out of my jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. She shivered anyway, like the cold had sunk past her skin and into her bones long before she reached my truck. "What's your name?" I asked. It took her a second to answer, as if the question had traveled a long way to reach her. "Emily," she said. "My name is Emily." Saying it seemed to remind her she still had one, that she was still a person, not just someone's target. "Emily," I repeated, anchoring her to the sound. You're safe right now, you're with me. You're... Her eyes flicked up to mine, searching for a lie, and not finding one moved back to the road. You don't understand, she murmured. He doesn't stop. He waits. He watches. He smiles while he does it. I'd seen men like that. Men who enjoyed patience, who savored fear the way some people savored a good meal. Men who believed persistence gave them ownership. I helped her to her feet slowly, careful not to jostle her ribs. Each movement drew a soft wince from her lips, but she refused to cry out loud. The kind of quiet strength she carried comes from surviving too much for too long. I opened the passenger door of my rig and helped her climb in, her hands clutching the grab handle like it was the last rung on a ladder out of hell. Once she was settled, I closed the door gently, sealing her in warmth and steel. I walked a slow circle around the truck stop, senses stretched tight like wire. The air smelled of cold metal, old fuel, and wet asphalt. My boots scratched over broken glass and grit. I scanned the darkness beyond the pumps, the abandoned motel next door, the empty road leading in and out. The night gave nothing back. No sound, no headlights, just that suffocating stillness that always shows up right before something goes wrong. When I climbed back into the cab, Emily was staring straight ahead, eyes glossy but focused. Her hands were pressed flat against her stomach, like she was trying to hold herself together from the inside out. He said he'd come, she whispered as I shut the door. He said if I ran again, he'd make sure no one ever found me. Her voice trembled. And when he makes a promise, he keeps it. For a moment, she just stared at the dashboard lights glowing softly in the dark, her breath fogging the cold air inside the cab. I didn't push her. Silence sometimes is the only space someone has left to gather the strength needed to speak. When she finally did, her voice was small, distant, like she was reciting a nightmare she'd lived too many times. He wasn't always like this, she said. At least, I don't think he was. She swallowed hard. We met at a job I had, waitressing at a bar off I-70. He was charming, funny, the kind of man who makes you feel seen. Her hands tightened over her ribs. I thought he cared, thought he was helping me. My mom was sick. I was behind on rent. He stepped in when I had no one else. She let out a hollow laugh. That's how monsters work. They look like answers at first. I stayed quiet, letting her speak on her terms. Her fingers traced the edge of my jacket around her shoulders, grounding herself. It changed fast, she whispered. He kept saying I owed him, that everything he paid for meant he owned a piece of me. When I tried to leave, he locked me inside the apartment for 3 days. No food, no phone, just him telling me I was ungrateful, that I was lucky he wanted me. Her voice cracked, shattering like thin glass. I felt my jaw tighten. I'd met men like him before, the ones who treat love like a leash and kindness like a cage, the ones who confuse control with devotion, the ones who believe fear is the only language worth speaking. Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Tonight was the first time I got away in weeks. I waited until he passed out. I grabbed my shoes and ran. She shook her head. I didn't even grab a coat. And he followed you, I said quietly. She nodded. He woke up. I don't know how he found me so fast, but he did. He chased me into the highway. I almost threw myself into traffic just to get away. She swallowed, breath shaking. I ran toward the lights of this place because I thought someone might help me. Her eyes lifted to mine again, pleading. Tell me I was right. You were right, I told her. And I meant it. But even as the words left my mouth, something outside the truck shifted. Subtle. Barely there, but real. A soft crunch of gravel beneath a careful step. Emily stiffened instantly, her breath freezing mid-air. That's him, she whispered, voice barely audible. Not a guess. Not a fear. A certainty carved into her bones. I reached across the cab and turned off the interior lights with a quiet click. Darkness swallowed us, except for the faint glow of the dashboard. Emily curled closer to the door, keeping her eyes locked on the side mirror. My heartbeat slowed, steady and controlled, the way it always did right before something dangerous stepped into the open. Another footstep, closer this time, deliberate. A shadow moved just beyond the reach of my headlights, too tall, too slow, too intentional to be a stray traveler. "Stay low," I murmured. Emily dropped instantly, crouching against the seat. Her breath trembled so hard I could feel it pulse through the floor. I cracked the window an inch, letting the cold air cut into the cab. Beneath the wind, beneath the humming engine, beneath the buzzing neon sign, I heard it, breathing, slow, patient, hunting. Someone out there wasn't searching blindly. He knew exactly what he was walking toward. A faint silhouette drifted between the fuel pumps, the shape of a man, broad shoulders, heavy stride. He paused, head tilted just slightly toward my truck like he could smell fear on the air. The night felt tighter around us, like the darkness itself was listening. Emily pressed her hand to her mouth to stop a cry from escaping. "He said if I ran again," she whispered, trembling violently, "he'd drag me home by my hair." Her words were still hanging in the air when the man's boot scraped against the gravel right beside my front wheel. The shape beside my wheel stopped moving, like the night itself held him in place. Emily's fingernails dug into the fabric of my jacket as she slid down even further, eyes wide, breath trapped in her chest. I didn't move, didn't blink. A predator expects panic. Silence unnerves them. Through the cracked window, I heard the faint scrape of his jacket zipper as he shifted his weight. He knew we were inside. He just didn't know what I was willing to do. A knuckle tapped gently, almost politely, against the passenger door. Once, twice. Slow, calculated taps meant to break a person long before a hand ever grabbed them. Emily squeezed her eyes shut, tears spilling down her cheeks. "He always knocks first," she whispered. "He likes hearing me freeze." My jaw tightened. Monsters don't wear fangs. They wear patience. And this man had weaponized silence into something twisted and personal. "Emily," he called out softly, voice dripping with cold affection. "I know you're in there." He dragged his hand along the door, fingers tracing the metal like he was caressing it. "Come on, sweetheart. You know you can't stay away from me." He chuckled, low and sickening. "And whoever's in that truck with you, they can't protect you from what's mine." The word mine snapped something deep in my chest. Not rage, clarity. I pushed the door open fast enough to break the illusion of control he thought he had. The door swung wide, slamming into him with a heavy thud. He stumbled back, cursing, clutching his arm. His eyes lifted to mine, dark, wild, furious that prey dared hide behind someone else. "You need to step away from my rig," I said, voice steady, grounded like steel. He laughed, recovering quickly. "You don't know who you're getting involved with," he snapped. "She belongs to me." "That's where you're wrong," I said. "She doesn't belong to anyone." His smile vanished, replaced by something colder. He straightened his coat and stepped toward me, boots crunching on the gravel. "Move," he growled, "before you get hurt." I shifted my stance, blocking every path he could take toward the passenger door. I wasn't provoking him. I was making a promise. Because tonight, Emily wasn't alone on a dark highway, and I wasn't letting her go back to hell. He stepped closer, sizing me up with a stare that had probably worked on every terrified person he decornered before. But intimidation only works on the unwilling, and tonight, I wasn't moving an inch. The cold wind whipped through the truck stop, carrying the metallic scent of diesel and something else. Fear, but not mine. His. Just a flicker beneath the arrogance, but it was there. A man who was used to dominance doesn't know what to do when someone bigger refuses to bend. Emily's reflection shimmered in the side mirror, her face pale, eyes locked on us. She wasn't calling out, wasn't begging. She was frozen in that silent terror victims learn to live inside. He glanced at her reflection too, and something twisted in his expression. "Look at her," he said, voice lowering into a sick whisper. She needs me. She falls apart without me. That's not need, I said. That's trauma. The word hit him like a slap. He lunged, fast, reckless, fueled by the panic of a man losing control. He grabbed my jacket and tried to shove me aside, but he might as well have been trying to move a wall. I braced my boots in the gravel and held steady. His fingers tightened around my collar. Get out of my way, he snarled. She's mine to fix. I grabbed his wrist, twisting sharply until he cried out. You don't fix people by breaking them, I said. He stumbled back, clutching his arm, eyes wild now, not with anger, but with the realization that his old tricks didn't work here. He looked toward the truck, toward Emily, toward the only source of power he'd ever known. But Emily wasn't staring at him anymore. She was staring at me. And that shift, her seeing someone else stand up, terrified him more than anything. You don't understand, he said, voice cracking with desperation disguised as fury. She'll come with me. She always does. Not tonight, I answered. Not while I'm standing. A flicker of fear, real fear, finally crossed his face, and that's when he reached into his coat. Not slowly, not threateningly, but with the frantic speed of a man who'd rather destroy everything than lose control. His hand shot into his coat so fast the air snapped around him. For a split second, the world shrank. Just me, him, and that desperate motion. Emily gasped inside the cab, her hand slamming against the window in silent panic. I didn't wait to see what he was reaching for. Men like him don dig into their coats at 2 a.m. to pull out apologies. They pull out threats, weapons, punishments, anything that restores their power. I grabbed his wrist before he could yank whatever it was free. The momentum jerked him forward, his shoulder slamming into my chest, but I held his arm locked in place. Let go, he snarled, twisting like a trapped animal. His coat shifted just enough for me to see the handle of a folding knife glinting beneath the fabric. Not a big blade, not fancy. Just the kind cowards carry in their pockets to feel bigger than they are. You were going to use that on her, I said, my voice low. Weren't you? His lips curled back into something feral. She learns faster when she bleeds. Emily let out a broken cry, covering her mouth, her eyes flooding with terror and memories she'd tried to outrun. My whole chest burned with a cold fury I hadn't felt in years. I slammed him against the side of the rig, pinning his arm above his head. The knife clattered to the ground, bouncing across the gravel with a sharp metallic ring that cut through the darkness like a warning bell. He struggled, but the fight in him was wild, unfocused. A man who had spent his life overpowering someone weaker doesn't know how to fight someone who won't break. She's mine, he screamed, the words tearing from his throat. You don't get to take her from me. I leaned close, tightening my grip until his breath hitched. She was never yours, I said. You don't own people. You don't get to decide their pain. He froze, not because he agreed, but because hearing it out loud shattered the illusion he'd lived inside for years. Behind me, the truck door opened. Emily stumbled out, one hand braced on the seat, the other gripping the frame. She wasn't running toward him. She wasn't begging. She wasn't apologizing. She was standing, shaking, bruised, terrified, but standing. Her voice trembled as she spoke. I'm done, she whispered. You don't control me anymore. And for the first time, he saw it too. The leash he'd wrapped around her life had finally snapped. For a moment, everything stopped. The wind, the cold, even the hum of the highway in the distance. Emily's words hung in the air like something sacred, fragile, and unbelievably brave. Her legs trembled beneath her, but her stare didn't waver. The man looked at her as if seeing a ghost, shocked, insulted, wounded by the idea that she had a voice at all. You're not done, he spat, his confidence cracking. You don't get to be done. Emily took one shaky step closer, clutching my jacket tighter around her shoulders. You hurt me, she said quietly. You hurt my mother. You hurt anyone who loved me because you wanted me scared. You wanted me alone. Her voice broke, but she kept going. But I'm not alone now. His jaw clenched. "He won't always be here," he said, jerking his chin at me. "Eventually you'll be alone again. And when you are—" "No," she whispered. "I won't." The strength in her voice, soft, trembling but real, hit him harder than anything I'd done. Abusers don't fear fists. They fear truth. They fear losing the story they forced onto someone else. He shook his head violently, as if rejecting the idea. "You think you're strong now?" he hissed. "You think you can live without me?" Emily swallowed, tears streaking her bruised face. "I don't think," she said. "I know. For the first time in years, I know." He lunged toward her, but this time his movements were clumsy, frantic, nothing like the controlled predator who had stalked her through the night. I intercepted him easily, shoving him back so hard he almost fell. His boot scraped across the gravel as he caught himself, but his power had drained out completely. He wasn't a threat anymore. He was just a man facing the collapse of the only world he'd ever built, one where he was in control. He staggered back, chest heaving, and for the first time fear, not anger, flooded his eyes. "You're ruining everything," he whispered, pointing at Emily like she'd betrayed him simply by breathing. "You're nothing without me." Emily straightened, trembling, but tall. "Then why are you afraid?" she asked. Her words hit him like a hammer. He looked away, shaking, shrinking, unraveling, because she'd finally spoken the truth he'd spent years burying. That was the moment the distant sound of sirens cut through the night. The sirens grew louder, sweeping across the empty highway like a promise finally being kept. Red and blue lights flickered faintly on the horizon, reflecting off the metal of my rig. The man froze, staring at the approaching glow as if he were watching the end of a life he thought he'd decontrol forever. Emily exhaled, a long, shaking breath that sounded like the first real breath she'd taken in years. He backed away from us, muttering to himself, shaking his head as denial crumbled inside him. "You called them," he whispered, voice cracking. "You actually called them." But the truth was, no one had called them. A passing trucker must have seen him chasing Emily along the highway earlier and alerted the authorities. Monsters always forget that someone is watching, even when they think they're hunting in the dark. 2 patrol cars pulled into the truck stop, tires hissing against the cold pavement. Officers stepped out quickly, hands steady, eyes sharp, reading the scene in seconds. Emily clung to my jacket, trembling but upright as they approached. When the officers reached her, she didn't collapse this time. She didn't look away. She lifted her chin just enough to be heard. "It was him," she whispered. Please don't let him hurt anyone else." The man tried to speak, tried to spin a story, tried to twist the truth the way he always had. But the knife on the ground, the bruises on Emily's face, and the sheer panic etched into her shoulders told the real story. And when an officer placed a hand on his arm, he flinched, not in anger, in fear. "You don't understand," he shouted as they cuffed him. "She needs me. She needs me." But his voice wasn't power anymore. It was desperation. It was over. Emily watched as they guided him into the back of the patrol car. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just breathed, slow, trembling, alive. When they closed the door on him, the night seemed to exhale with her. The officers wrapped her in a blanket and led her to the second car, but she paused beside me. "Thank you," she whispered, "for stopping, for listening, for not leaving." "You're safe now," I told her. Really safe. When the patrol cars pulled away, the quiet settled again. But it wasn't the same kind of quiet as before. This one wasn't waiting for danger. This one was just still. I climbed back into my truck, resting my hands on the wheel, feeling the warm hum of the engine beneath my palms. If you stayed with me through this story, then you understand why these moments matter, why someone has to be there when the night turns cruel. If this meant something to you, hit the like button. It helps these stories reach the people who might need them most. And subscribe, because the road is long and there are more voices out there waiting to be heard. Stick with me. There are more miles ahead.